What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday, Waxman, Top Level. Two guys talk sports. Let's get this video rolling. Hockey, hockey, hockey. It's what's going on around this time of year, and the playoffs have been big time so far, or the Stanley Cup playoffs have been big time so far. So I'm going to talk tonight about two series in particular I've been keeping an eye on, and two series that I wish to share some thoughts with everyone who watches this video. So to begin, we're going to start with the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. So far, this series been back and forth, tied up at 2 games apiece for both sides. Winnipeg got the ball rolling early. They've won the first 2 games in Winnipeg. But interesting enough, the tables have been turned. The St. Louis Blues have all the momentum right now. They've won the last 2 games. So the home team has won all the games so far in this series, going into Game 5. And here's the thing. We knew this was going to be a good series, okay? So far, this is what this series is looking like. Absolute fantastic series so far between both these sides. Both sides showing great firepower. Tremendous firepower on offense at home. And you got 2 of the best goalies in Connor Hellebuyck and Jordan Binnington. And got plenty of offensive weapons on both sides. So here's the thing. The Jets, I'll admit, I'm rooting for the Jets. I want to see them finally go to the Stanley Cup Finals. But it would not surprise me if the St. Louis Blues come out of this series. Especially with the way Jordan Binnington is playing. In the last 2 games, he's been playing out of his mind. But this isn't too surprising to a guy like me, because Jordan Binnington, in my opinion, he may be the best goalie in the NHL when it comes to big games and big game moments. That guy, and we saw it in the Four Nations face-off between USA and Canada. He's the big reason why Canada was able to outlast the United States and win, because Jordan Binnington played out of his mind and made incredible saves. He might, every now and then, he'll give up some soft goals, but he's going to make some absurdly great saves to make up for those soft goals that he gives up. And right now, he's playing 2 games at home against St. Louis. And thanks in large part to him, the St. Louis Blues not only won their 2 home games in Games 3 and Games 4, but they kicked the Jets' butts too, scoring 7 goals in the first game and 5 goals in the next game. So 12 goals in their 2 home in Game 3 and Game 4 combined. And for the Winnipeg Jets, all right, the tables have turned. Momentum's flipped, all right? Like, they looked really good in their home stand, scoring 5 goals in Game 1 and 2 in Game 2. Game 2 was really, really good between both sides. But here's the thing. If the Jets are going to find a way past the St. Louis Blues, it's more than just trying to solve Jordan Binnington. Okay? I will say, in Games 3 and Games 4 combined, the Jets had just 3 goals. That's not good enough to win on. And I don't care that, okay, so was on the road. That's not good enough, though. You got to be able to score more than 3 goals in back-to-back road games to win in the playoffs in this league. Because Stanley Cup playoffs, toughest postseason out there. There's no question. And so if the Jets are going to find a way past the St. Louis Blues, okay, they have got the Jets. Got to get their offensive mojo back. Starting tonight in Game 5 at home against Winnipeg. You got the whiteout again on your side. So take advantage of that home crowd. And also, even just as concerning as the lack of offense in those last 2 games, Connor Hellebuyck was nowhere, and I do mean nowhere, near his best. He was you could make the case. Game 3, he was a no-show, and you can make the case for Games 3 and Games 4. The Hellebuyck that we know, regular season Connor Hellebuyck, was nowhere to be seen. It just seems like in the postseason, Connor Hellebuyck just is not up to his usual standards. So the Jets desperately need Connor Hellebuyck to find that rhythm again and find that mojo and play out of his mind, much like his counterpart Jordan Binnington has been playing. Because with Binnington playing well, the Blues have all the confidence in the world. They flipped the momentum of this series. So now how do the Jets get it back tonight? Well, it starts at playing well at home, more offense, but you also need Connor Hellebuck at his best. Because if he has another off night tonight, this series could be over in 6 for the Winnipeg Jets. And down once again goes the President Trophy winners. I mean, gosh, always something cursed about that trophy. And now this is the first time Winnipeg's ever won it. So I think they're starting to kind of feel the pressure of being that number 1 seed in the Western Conference. But they just need to get back to what they were doing in games 1 and games 2. They need Connor Hellebuck to play better. They need him to be stronger in that, but need more offense too. Jets need to fly high in both defense and offense, or at least fly higher if they want to win this series, whether it takes 6 games or 7. The Blues it's going to be a long series. I think this is still going to be a 7-game series. The Blues, they're tough. You could make the case the winner of this series is going to represent the West in the Stanley Cup Finals. But we'll find out. Really intriguing series, though. Right now, St. Louis, they got all the momentum. Their goaltender's playing with confidence and swagger. Winnipeg is trying to get that confidence and swagger they had in games 1 and 2. They're trying to get that back. And a good Game 5 tonight will go a long way for the Jets. So that's just my thoughts overall on the first 4 games between the Jets and the Blues. Really fantastic series so far. But if you think that series is really, really good, you haven't seen it. There's an even better series, arguably an even better series out west. You got to check out the Kings and the Oilers right now. This series started out 2-0 in favor of the Los Angeles Kings, and it looked like they had the Oilers right where they wanted them. The Oilers looked dead in the water after those first 2 games. But you know what? Give the Edmonton Oilers credit. They have responded. That veteran leadership of McDavid and Draisaitl. They also have a different goaltender now in net. And all of a sudden, much like the St. Louis Blues, the Oilers, they have flipped the tables. They've got all the momentum now. They won games 2, 3, and 4 in Edmonton. Of course, tough to win there. And if the Edmonton Oilers go on to win this series, Game 4 was the turning point. And that comeback in Game 4, the absolute turning point then for this series, because LA was looking like they were going to run away with that game. They were up 3-1 going into the 3rd period. And Edmonton had arguably their best period of this series thus far in that 3rd period in Game 4, scoring 2 unanswered to tie the game, and then with about like 2 to 3 minutes to go in overtime, boom, game winner, Leon Draisaitl. And the Oilers are back to doing what the Oilers do best. And Game 5 last night, Kings struck first, but Oilers took control after. But then the Oilers took control, scoring 3 unanswered. And there you have. They end up winning winning Game 5 3-1. And now tomorrow at 10 p.m. the tip-off time, and they'll have a chance to finish off the Kings in Edmonton. I mean, LA, they've improved a lot as a team. But now they're facing some adversity. They had control of the series to start, and the last 3 games, and actually around that Game 4 comeback by the Oilers, they've lost. The Kings have now lost control of this series, and now they got to figure out how to get it back. And it starts with a strong effort on the road in Edmonton tonight. Got to play their bet. Well, not tonight, but tomorrow night. Sorry, they gotta have a great response tomorrow night, or their season's finished. And right now, Edmonton has all the momentum. The Oilers, that well-oiled machine is gushing out oils of confidence. Oil. Lots of it, too. And if the Oilers just keep on doing what they're doing right now, then the series may end up being over in 6 games. But great series, though, between both the Jets and the Blues, and the Oilers and the Kings. These fantastic for the first round. Sometimes some people will make. We all look forward to the Stanley Cup Finals, but a lot of times the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is the best, and a lot of it due to rivalries. And it's matchups like these that make the Stanley Cup playoffs as great as they are. And right now, both of these 2 series, not more than just intriguing. They are living up to the hype. Would not surprise me to see either one go to 7 games. It also wouldn't surprise me to see them both finish in 6 games. But regardless, right now, very interesting story. Great storylines for both these series. You got the Oilers and the Blues with a lot of momentum, and the Jets and the Kings searching for answers and searching for momentum, more or less, however you want to say it. So that's so far a great series in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then, all right, now we're going to shift some gears. So we're going to, man. So NFL draft has come and gone. Another NFL draft has come and gone. And the one thing that everybody's going to remember from this NFL draft in Green Bay is the free fall of Shedeur Sanders. For those of you who are wondering, Shedeur Sanders, he was projected to be not necessarily a number 1 overall pick, but a first-round pick at the very least. Well, what happened was Shedeur Sanders slid all the way from the first round all the way into day 3 of the NFL draft. I think he ended up being, I believe, a 6th or 7th round, maybe somewhere between a 5th and a 7th rounder. So that's a free fall. Could be a steal for Cleveland, who took him in the day 3 of the NFL draft. But he's not the only quarterback that Cleveland took. They also took Dylan Gabriel the day before. So just to give you guys a recap. So just wow. Wow. What an absolute slot. Admittedly, I've never seen anything like it. Okay, I had the Saints taking Shedeur Sanders at number 9. Only because I thought, okay, some team is going to get really desperate and take him at number 9, I reckon. And I thought the Saints might be. But give the Saints credit. Hey, they didn't take him at number 9. They decided to take, or at least they didn't get too desperate to take him at number 9. And I figured, okay, it's possible that he could slide too. But, oh my goodness. Look. Nothing against Shedeur Sanders. Okay, I didn't expect him to slide as much as he did. I thought, the second day, okay, he'll go in the second. And then when he wasn't going in the second night, or second or third rounds, all I could say to myself is, wow, he might not get drafted. There was a point where I thought he's not going to get drafted. He's going to go undrafted. But Cleveland decided to pull the trigger, and maybe they got kind of a steal in those later rounds, taking him as late as they did. Now, here's the thing. Shedeur Sanders seems like a class act. Doesn't do anything stupid off the field. No alcohol, no drugs. Doesn't get in fights. He's the son of Deion Sanders, who I think has worked very hard to raise his son in all the right ways. But I will say this, I think the big lesson here we can all learn in terms of this draft slide is this. It doesn't matter who you are, okay? Doesn't matter what position you play in football. Doesn't matter your motives, all that stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing, okay? No matter what kind of NFL prospect you are, you never, ever skip the NFL Combine. Whatever events leading up to the draft there are to help where teams can get information on you, whether it's draft meetings or even like the Senior Bowl, NFL Combine, whatever you do, if you're a high-rated prospect, don't ever skip these events. Shedeur Sanders skipped the NFL Combine. I think he skipped the Senior Bowl and a couple other critical events and decided instead to do private interviews and training in Boulder, Colorado. And that backfired on him big time. I think that the slide of Shedeur Sanders, it's going to go down as a lesson for future NFL prospects to learn. I think this is a lesson book right here for other prospects on what not to do when it comes to the process leading up to the draft. Don't skip out on these events. Shedeur Sanders skipped out on these crucial events and sadly he paid the price, falling all the way to day 3. NFL teams did not take kindly to his actions. All right, and you could say some teams were turned off by his attitude and his ego, being the son of prime time's another thing. But, here's the thing, okay? And no, this was not racism. The people who are comparing this to like Colin Kaepernick, no. Two different things, all right? Both those guys did two different things. One took a knee in protest of injustices across America. The other decided to skip the draft processes and decided to do things a different way, and it blew up in his face. Okay, two different things. Okay, and this whole narrative, the racism narrative, has got to stop too. All right, Jalen Milroe was taken before Shedeur Sanders, and Jalen Milroe is black. Okay, all right. So that narrative, after seeing that happen, look, that narrative went to crap pretty bad. Okay, so here's the thing. All right, it's not racism. It's not so other things. It's really kind of a lesson in humility for a guy like Shedeur Sanders, all right? The thing is, NFL teams want to collect as much information as they can on each and every prospect in the NFL draft. You know, they're trying to... It's a tough business, drafting football players. You're trying to build a team through the draft. You got to get that right, or your team's going to do really, really bad. And these teams are looking for things in certain prospects, from morals to character to football IQ and, athletic ability. And by skipping out on all these events, with Shedeur Sanders skipping out on all these events and instead conducting private interviews in a training session in Boulder, Colorado, NFL teams were not able to really gauge just what kind of prospect he has from a lot of different standpoints. Like, I mentioned character, physical abilities, talent, all that stuff. And football IQ, we can throw that in there. NFL teams weren't really able to get kind of a thermometer on him, but with him doing this thing. And you know what? These interviews didn't go particularly well for Shedeur Sanders. He may have interviewed with 2 or 3 teams, and I also heard something about Deion Sanders saying that he didn't want Shedeur to play for a couple of certain teams in the NFL. Things like that do not go over well with the NFL. Whatever you do, if you're a prospect playing in the NFL, you do not ever try to snub your nose at the NFL and act like, you know better. Because, believe me, this whole draft process, it's different. NFL teams know what they're looking for in execution of drafting players is a different story, but when it comes to, building up for the draft, NFL teams have an idea generally of what they are looking for in talent. They know their need, that each team knows their needs. And they need to know what each and every player, in terms of all those things, all these attributes each and every player has, from the character to, the physical abilities on the field, the talent, the football IQ, and because Shedeur Sanders decided to skip out on the NFL Combine, and because he only interviewed with a certain number of teams, and these interviews, from what I hear, didn't go well, teams weren't able to get a gauge on him, really. They weren't able... There were still questions about him going into draft day, and so, when you don't really know what to expect out of a guy like Shedeur Sanders, of course you're not going to draft him, because you just don't have, that finality in terms of all the information you need to figure out, in terms of deciding whether or not he's the right prospect for the team, and part of me, okay, I don't know if he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he still has some growing to do. He's still a bit raw, but if developed right, he can do well. But here's the thing. Don't snub your nose at the NFL, okay? Go to the Combine, attend as many of these events as you can so these teams can gather information on you. And you'll improve your chances of getting drafted by doing that. Shedeur Sanders chose a different path. And in a way, I think a lot of these NFL teams, 31 NFL teams at the very least, took this as, and maybe even the Cleveland Browns, took this as Shedeur Sanders thinking he thinks he doesn't need to go to the draft because he thinks he's better than all these draft processes. He thinks he already knows what he's capable of. And you know what? Honestly, you could look at this is a humility moment and a teaching moment. Not for Shedeur Sanders and all prospects going forward. NFL teams do not take kindly to this kind of ego for lack of better words, into this kind of motives. Deciding not to attend the combine or other critical events. That will never go over well for a prospect. And that's something we learned in this NFL draft, all right? Don't snub your nose at the NFL. Don't think you're better than them. Okay? Because the NFL, even if they may not always be right, but you know what? It's a big league. A lot of money, a lot of influence. You snub your nose at the NFL, you're gonna get humbled pretty fast. That's what happened with Shedeur Sanders. He decided to take a whole different approach. He thought was better than what the NFL had to offer, and you could say that the NFL draft humbled him really, really fast. Now, don't get me wrong. I hope Shedeur Sanders does well. I hope he breaks out. Hopefully. Cleveland, maybe not the best place for him to go, but that's just because quarterbacks typically don't do well in Cleveland. But maybe he can be that guy that turns Cleveland around. I hope so. I want to see him turn it around. But I think what happened to Shedeur Sanders in this NFL draft, moment of humility and a teaching moment for him. Not just for him, but for anyone else who wishes to enter the NFL and who wishes to be drafted. Don't avoid, events like the NFL Combine, very invaluable, especially to the NFL teams that are looking to draft you. Don't skip out on it, or you'll regret it later on. This much we have learned this week. And I will close it off by trying to say something positive. And to Shedeur Sanders, hey, I wish you all the best. I hope you do well in Cleveland. Go show them what you're made of. All right, on to this day in sports history. And on this day, the 30th of April, 1986, Bill Elliott, the great Bill Elliott, sets an all-time NASCAR qualifying record, winning the pole at the Winston 500 at Talladega Superspeedway with a speed of 212.809 miles per hour. That's fast. And in terms of kilometers, that's 342.483 kilometers an hour. And in a time of 44.998 seconds. All right, sports fans, that's all for this week's Waxon Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, any comments, any questions you have, leave them down below. I'll try to respond to them and maybe even talk about the question you ask this upcoming week. Thank you all for your support. Me and Tyler greatly appreciate it. And I hope you sports fans, I hope you're having as good of a week as I am. This is Jake Waxman from Two Guys Talk Sports. I thank you for watching this week's Wax on Wednesday, and I'll see you all next week and on Friday.